I remember in the first grade we were given the assignment to write a poem. Mine went something like this. Dices, dices, I love dices. Look, there's one with one side. Look, there's one with 100 sides. Like most elementary school literature, this poem wasn't without its flaws. For example, the word dice is considered the proper plural term, die is the singular, and dices is what you do to a bell pepper. It's also hard to imagine what a one-sided die might be. Is it a sphere? 1. Is it a Mobius strip? And while 100-sided dice do exist, they are basically golf balls covered in numbers and not really practical. Instead, most dice you see today look like these. But why? Let's find out. My name is Alex Colby from Meeple Mountain, and this is Playology. Today's lesson, why are dice dice-shaped? So, here's the familiar cast of characters. You got Triangle Man, Ice Cube, Pointy, Fruit Gushers, Soccer Ball, and the Epcot Center. So why are these the standard dice? Why these specific shapes? Well, for that answer, we need to go to 360 BC in Greece, where we find Plato, the philosopher, artist, writer, teacher, and mathematician. He was fascinated with a set of polyhedra, three-dimensional shapes, whose faces are all polygons with equal sides and angles, and each vertex or corner on the shape is also identical. Plato wrote in his dialogue The Timaeus that all stuff is made of these different polyhedral shapes, each element being comprised of one of the shapes. The classical elements he referred to were earth, water, air, and fire. The fifth shape, he said, was the shape of heaven or the universe, where the constellations were. His writing on this topic is what led to the term Platonic solids. In fact, those 5 Platonic solids are the only possible shapes that meet all of those criteria. So, given that these shapes are equal in about every possible way, it means when rolled, they have the same odds of landing on any of their sides face up. However, this knowledge of these supersymmetric shapes wasn't applied to dice for over a millennia. A study done by archaeologists in the University of Davis looked at dice over the course of the last 2,000 years and found that before 1100 AD, most dice were actually smaller on one side by at least 10%, and only about 1 in 9 were symmetric enough to look fair to the naked eye. This suggests that die rolls were seen as something left to fate, predetermined by the gods, like the weather. It wasn't until the 1600s when probability theory came along that dice became much more standardized. Now that we know what makes them so special, let's look at our dice again in detail. The D4, or 4-sided die, is formed from 4 regular triangles arranged into a triangular pyramid, not a square base like the kind of pyramid you'd see in Egypt. When rolled as a die, however, you'll notice there's not a side that faces up. To solve this, most manufacturers place the numbers in the corners of each triangle and you read the upright digit. Less commonly, they might mark the sides instead and expect you to read the bottom number on the side triangles. There's also another solution where you truncate or chop off the corners so you can print the numbers facing upwards. Just don't make them too big or it might land corner down. The largest D4 ever rolled would probably have to be the Pathfinder lander containing the NASA Mars rover. The Pathfinder lander inflated a network of airbags arranged in a puffy tetrahedron almost 20 feet around. It rolled for over 2 minutes until it finally settled right side up. Seriously, 1 in 4 chance. Moving on. The D6 is the classic die shape. The way the numbers are arranged on a modern D6, and all other even-sided dice, puts the highest number across from the lowest number. then the second highest across from the second lowest, and so on. In this case, it always makes the opposite sides add up to the same value, 7. But as far as I can tell, the arrangement of the digits shouldn't really change how fair the die is. It's just common practice now. Next size up is the Octahedron for our D8. It's 2 square-based pyramids with equilateral triangle sides stacked on each other, giving it a square waistline. The printing of the numbers may make it look like it doesn't have full symmetry, like there's a right way up, but actually any way you rotate it, it has the same square equator. Now we've gotten to Mr. Shape of the Universe himself, the Dodecahedron, with its unusual pentagonal sides. This die is one of the rarer ones in most traditional board games. The examples that come to mind for me are the exposure die from Dead of Winter, and this pair of adorable farm animal dice from a game called Have You Heard? Look, there's an officer puppy.
He's a cute puppy. Who's a cute puppy?
Finally, we've reached the great gaming disco ball, the Icosahedron. 20 equilateral triangles all folded together, 5 to a point. It's become synonymous with the tabletop RPG scene thanks to its use in Dungeons & Dragons and other D20 systems. But there's a D20 you may have played with as a kid without even knowing about it. If you were to take a magic 8-ball and smash the shell open, drain all the mystic ball juice, and cut open the plastic tube inside, you'd find that the fortunes on a magic 8-ball are written on the sides of an icosahedron. When the ball is shaken and then flipped over, the die floats to the top, landing on one side against the porthole, and the raised lettering breaks the surface of the blue-black fluid to reveal the response. So an 8-ball only has 20 responses, which if you're curious are 50% positive, 25% negative, and 25% non-committal or roll again spaces. So that's all the dice. Thanks for... Wait a minute. What about this guy? The heck? These D10s aren't platonic solids at all. That's right, D10s are not platonic solids, because their corners are not all identical. Some connect to 5 faces, and some connect to 3 faces. And while the faces are all the same shape, the shape itself is not a regular polygon. They have 2 short sides and 2 long sides. This shape is called a pentagonal trapezohedron. There's a very good reason they don't make D10s with triangular sides all over. If you did build it with triangles this way, making a pentagonal bipyramid, opposite sides of it aren't parallel, so when it rests flat, there's no top face, so you can't use it as a die. Also, you may see D10s like this with 00, 10, 20, up to 90 on the different sides. They're rolled with regular D10 to then make a percentile die, making a random number from 1 to 100 without needing a giant Death Star of a die. Now there are other non-platonic dice out there. The D30 is a rhombic triacantahedron, which is a Catalan solid which does have face transitive property, which means all the faces are equivalent, and it also has edge transitive property so that each edge is similar, but the corners are not all identical. Some corners are for 3 faces like this, and some corners are for 5 faces and a star like this. If you're in need of a more unusual die number, you can fudge it using a top, a long die, or a spinner to get by. But thanks to some mathematicians from 2 millennia ago, the literal platonic ideals of dice are these 5 shapes here. And that's why dice are dice-shaped. Thanks for watching this episode of Playology. If there's something else you'd like to have us cover in a future episode, let us know. I'll provide the templates for the weird paper dice I made in the description of this video. And if you're interested in more Meeple Mountain content, you can find it at meeplemountain.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Meeple Mountain. Thank you.